episode of LiNK On, your number one show on the internet, with us here at LiNK Japan Careers. I'm Brian.
I'm Rhys.
Visit our site at linkjapancareers.net.
Yep.
Sorry.
We've only done it 39 times, Brian.
39 times, yeah, 39. We're almost to the big 40. How's everyone doing today, guys? Stay tuned to the end. We have a big announcement about a really cool interactive map. In fact, let's do it first.
Okay.
We have an interactive map of open Interac positions. There's 114 locations. And if you go over to our site at linkjapancareers.net and go to the blog, you'll see it right there. And you'll also see it on the top page of our site, and also on all our social media. You can go there and check out all of the positions. A lot of people ask us, do you have a job near me? And they're living somewhere, and the best way to do it is to go to that map and check out where you live, and then check out what's nearby. And the application link will be in the information for each pin. So when you see the little blue globe, you can click on that. It opens a menu with the information and the application link. So very easy. Never been easier.
I think this is a really good thing, Brian, because I often hear from the audience about people who they live in Japan, but they're sort of settled. Maybe they've got a family, maybe they've got a sweetheart, and they don't want to move. So they are like, do you have position in X? And they're not really flexible to go anywhere else but X. So I think this is just the natural progression of what we do with ALT recruiting.
Well, yeah. I was getting tired of answering that same question all the time. So, I want to make this map and this link available to people. And you can go to our site, and the actual URL, let me get it here real quick. And I'll put this in the comments of the
video,
yeah, so you guys can check it out. And
while Brian's just doing that, guys, feel free to ask us questions, by the way. This is a very open forum, so if you've got a particular question, please do type it through. There's a little bit of a delay, but at the end we'll try to answer them if we can.
Yeah, let's get this in there real quick. So, Rhys, what's on the agenda today?
Well, today I'm going to start a bit of a series where we're going to look at particular roles and particular industries. For those of you who live in Japan, you are probably aware that April is about the time where everyone does their job changes.
Real quick.
Living overseas in countries like Australia, where I'm from, or maybe America.
So,
where
Rhys,
you're from,
what's
Brian,
on the agenda today?
You can sort of change jobs throughout
today
the year, but in Japan, that's still start possible. A bit of a series where we're going to look at traditional roles and particular sort of around now to April. So, for those of you kind of with that in mind, probably aware that April is we're going to sort of talk about a position or a role or an industry. Living overseas in countries like Australia, where I'm from, or maybe America.
So, Rhys, what's on the agenda
we're going to start with the ALT. Well, today in Japan, pros and cons, and there are a lot of traditional ALT roles sort of around now to April. So and why kind of maybe it's not a good fit for you, and if it's not, what other options there might be. So let's get started talking about that.
Yeah.
Great. So a bit of background. Both Brian and I were jet ALTs. I was 2013, and you were what year, Brian?
1995.
Yeah, Windows 95. And I was also a relief teacher ALT for Interac. Brian, were you ever a teacher for Interac?
Yes, I was.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was a language consultant teaching corporate classes, and I also did some ALT work.
Yep. And you were also a manager as well, so you sort of did
I've done everything. Trainer, curriculum, managing consultant, etc., etc.
All right. So I mean, I'm pretty sure most of you guys living in Japan know what an ALT is, but if you don't, it stands for Assistant Language Teacher. And traditionally, this is a role where you're going to be more of a T2, although it is slightly changing. You know, every 4 years it seems to bounce between T1 or T2, teaching English in the class. Um, I'm going to say a couple of pros, and then Brian, you can say some pros, and yeah, we'll just talk like that. Look, pros for this job, guys. It's a great entry into teaching. I've had quite a few friends who, left uni. They were a little unsure what they wanted to do. They did their gap year. They came to Japan and they taught, English as an ALT through JET or through Interac. And, they've then gone on to become teachers in their home countries. They've got the teaching bug. They've gone back, got their dip ed or their masters, and now they're teaching. I think it's a very great entry point because it's very safe. There is going to be less pressure on you. And yeah, there still might be a little bit of pressure, but less pressure than if you were a full-fledged teacher. You're going to get a lot of those soft skills, and you might find that teaching is the career for you, and it's a very rewarding career. Um, yeah, that's my first pro. Brian, do you have a pro that you want to share?
I definitely think so. I think
Yeah,
everything you said is completely accurate. Um, as well, the lifestyle
lifestyle. Yep.
that you can have, getting off work at 4:20 or 5 o'clock every day, you can do whatever interests you have in the
Mm,
afternoon or in the evening,
mm,
and still get to bed at an early hour,
mm.
and you can have time for whatever you want, right?
Yeah, and
And you get weekends off.
yep, you do. I think that if I could just come in, I think that's a really good point. You have time to do something if you're finishing at 4. That is a luxury that I don't think many other jobs here in Japan have, if I'm honest. And
No.
that extra 2 hours, guys, if you do that every day for a couple of years, you're going to build up a skill in something. That might be Japanese. Often, I hear people who maybe have a different background than teaching. I mean, this is the other side, right? They're a marketing graduate or they're I don't know, a sales guy, and they want to sort of move into one of these roles in Japan, uh, and then the reality hits them that you've got to have pretty fluent Japanese. Like, with the exception of IT, it's pretty much the rule. There are exceptions, yes, but I think it's better to know what the rules of the game are. And if you did that for a couple of years, again, I've seen plenty of people who've come in with zero Japanese. They studied for a couple of years, and that doesn't have to be just studying at home. Like that could be going to the community hall, going, I don't know, to Starbucks, going to somewhere and engaging with people and building up your Japanese skills. It's definitely something you can do, and yeah,
Yeah.
I agree, Brian,
Yeah, it's
100%.
one of the best places to learn Japanese.
Mm,
That's the understatement of the century.
understatement of the century. I agree. Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, I think if you were in a more rural place, you would learn Japanese really quick. 6 months, a year, you'd be
yep,
speaking,
yep, yep.
and you could get your level up really quick.
That just reminds me, just very quick, of a quick story I'll share with you guys. It's on the same topic. We had an ALT. I remember this, Brian. We had an ALT that went to one of the Tokyo Islands,
Mm.
and I remember they were sort of like they just wanted the experience. They love surfing, and they didn't really know any Japanese. And I think yeah, by the end of it, I'm not sure if it was 1 year or two, but they came back to Tokyo like fluent, fluent, and
Yeah,
then they were able to move into a job that they did want to do. I believe it was marketing. I have to get back to you on that one, but yeah, like they were able to do it. And what did they do? They saved a stack of money. They surfed all the time, and they had that sort of I mean, they couldn't go to Tokyo every weekend, but they could go maybe once a month, stay at a friend's place. It was a pretty sweet gig, really.
yeah,
So Inaka also, um, that's a good segue into this next one. Locations all over Japan, at least with Interac, we've got, well, I shouldn't say we, they have positions all over Japan, from Hokkaido through to Kyushu. So um, that's a pretty good perk. Like maybe you want to be in Hokkaido and then you meet someone, or I don't know, you see that USJ's got the Super Nintendo World and you want to move to Osaka. Well, that can sort of be arranged, and with the ALT job, you can do that very, very easily with Interac.
Yeah,
Um,
there is an opportunity to
Opportunity.
relocate, to
Mm.
change branches and locations. That season comes up once a year,
Once a year.
and
That's
you
the
can
important part.
declare your request.
Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, right. Um, and then the other thing that I think that was very good with Interact, and to my knowledge, I don't know if anyone else did it in the ALT industry, but um, there's a lot of talk about, oh, the ALT position is very unstable. It depends how you look on it at it, but with Interact, at least I believe during the lockdown, they paid the wages, didn't they, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like I don't know how many companies that did that. Actually, even Japanese companies don't know how many that did that.
Well, I feel really, sorry for some of the guys that worked at one certain eikaiwa,
Mm,
a big one, and they were classified as a kind of independent contractor.
yeah, right.
And so when there were school shutdowns there was no way to get unemployment. And a
Yeah.
lot of those guys um, ended up going to the government and getting the loans for small business.
Mm,
You know, that was the only way they could get support.
yeah.
And it's not a good position to be in.
No, no, no. It's very, yeah. It's an awful position to be in, and yeah. I mean, yeah. There was that one Eikaiwa, but I mean, there were many even just smaller Eikaiwas that just simply couldn't afford the staff. It wasn't even a, malicious, intentionally malicious per se. It was just they simply couldn't do it. A lot of these mum and pop shops, right? So,
Hmm.
yeah, there you go. There is a bit of stability behind dispatch companies. Um, and there are some misconceptions about dispatch companies that I think we might talk to a little bit at the end. Um, yeah, so look, basically to recap, you know, pros for the ALT position. Look, it's a great entry into teaching. You're going to work out whether you like teaching or not. It's a great entry into Japan. With Interact, there's locations all over Japan. You know, pretty stable. Hour based really, and great time to practice Japanese. Oh, I forgot the important one. You get to work with kids. This is a really funny thing. Like, and if you've worked with kids, you'll know what I'm talking about. But kids are like positive batteries. That. I mean, that yes, there is some of us maybe like to work in like more high-paced sort of corporate environments, but there's going to be things that are as rewarding as teaching children. Um, I
Yeah,
firmly believe that, even now. And I love my job, but I think back to teaching kids, and I'm like, that was very fulfilling.
yeah.
Um,
Your stress
mm,
level is going to be low, and you're
yeah,
helping people out.
yeah. And yeah, especially, and I got to teach elementary school, and I remember just one story where this boy came up to me and he's like, "What's this?" And like he had something in his hands, and I'm like, "Oh, let me see." And he opens his hands and he's got like the kabuto mushi, like
A
the
bug.
rhino beetle, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a beetle." And he's like, "Beetle, beetle," and he just ran off screaming, "Beetle, beetle," to his friends. And yeah, it was really silly, but you think I still remember that, right? Like it was really fun.
Oh, they
Um,
do things like that all the time.
and they're hilarious. They're like
Mm.
little comedians, and they're smarter than you think,
Yeah,
kids. Yeah, right.
yeah, they are. In the end, they just want to play,
Mm,
right?
mm,
There's a real lack of play in
mm.
their education system, and
Yeah,
the ALT is one of the people that they play with. You know, um, so I think that's a good thing.
I agree
Yeah,
100%. Like and just to clarify for other people here, when you say play, Brian, you're talking about play as in for growth, like
yeah,
children grow through
yeah,
play. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, they develop an interest in something, and
Mm,
then they say things or they take actions, based on their interest.
mm.
I don't mean, just
Just playing, yeah.
playing for playing's sake, but I mean
No.
having a playful attitude towards communication is what I mean.
100%.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So yeah, look, there is a good amount of pros for this job. Let's move on a little bit to the cons. And I think how I want to preface this, guys, is, you know, it's not so much a con per se as you need to know what the job is and what it's not. The job is an assistant language teacher. Now, there are people that, take that to the outer limit, and they're like, the game changers, and sometimes they even appear on TV, and you've got these communities and parents saying that this ALT was a godsend, and changed their lives. They do exist, so I'm not
Hmm.
belittling their performance at all, but I'm just looking at strictly on what the role is. It's an assistant language teacher, so a lot of the cons are more of things that we hear from people, and I feel it's because there's a frustration within what that role is and the expectation that they might have within that role.
I think
So
people are overthinking it.
yeah, I'm overthinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you go to school
Mm,
and you go to class,
yeah.
and yeah, you teach some lessons based out of the book or the curriculum or whatever,
Mm,
and then you have a lot of moments of small moments of interaction with various students,
mm,
and that's where you can make influence,
mm,
uh, which I think
mm.
is more important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's a funny thing. So much of the role, it's like it's less about what you do in the classroom and more about what you do outside the classroom. If you've
Right.
got a good rapport outside of the classroom, you're going to find that the classes inside goes smoother, even if they're not as technically good as if you have spent like 4 hours preparing it.
Mm,
This this is a little bit of a divergent, so
mm,
I'll cover this very quickly. So a lot of people when they start out as an ALT, they really want to make these killer lessons, and they spend way too much time making these lessons. So during those breaks, those lunch breaks, the ALT is spending more time indoors planning lessons rather than sort of wandering the halls, if it's junior high, and talking with the kids, or having the school lunch or kicking the soccer ball if it's the younger kids. And actually, that interaction is more important to a degree. You obviously you want to be prepared, but you can over prepare, I think is my point. So if you're just starting out, just prepare as much as you can. Don't overthink it. Really spend more time trying to build the rapport with the teachers and the students, and you'll find that the job gets even easier. And the job is pretty easy.
yeah.
So, mm,
Yeah.
um,
I
mm,
I would always go around the school and check out different things. And my first school was a farming school, so I actually did a lot of farming.
yeah,
Yeah, and like motor maintenance and tractor maintenance and stuff like that,
it's pretty
and
cool.
all kinds of stuff with cows and pigs. Um, yeah, it was an interesting school.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of things you could get into, other than the classes.
yeah.
I didn't have very many classes my first year, so there just wasn't that much space in the curriculum because the farming curriculum in the school took up most of the time.
Mm-mm. Yeah,
Yeah, I could have been a part timer there.
yeah, yeah. But
I
I
mean,
think
some days, some weeks I would go to junior high, and at the junior high, you do a lot more lessons
mm,
than at the
yeah.
farming school.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like when I was teaching in junior high, my first year, I think my second grade junior high, it was just five girls. That was the whole
Oh,
grade.
that's country area.
That's a country area there, right?
Yeah.
And the third grade was like about seven kids, boys and girls, and like they'd known each other since they were little. It was, yeah, it's surreal.
I mean,
It's surreal.
I only taught in a place like that once, which was
Yeah.
up on the top of Mount Scuba in Ibaragi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and there's a really small school there, where the families, the kids of the families of the resort there go to,
Mm.
and it's like 2 kids per grade.
Yeah. Hey, but we're really getting off track.
Yeah.
So let's get back
So you
to
were talking about what
cons.
the cons or perceived negatives are.
Right. So I'm going to start with basically just saying this, and it's the salary is what it is.
Right.
Um, you know, a lot of people compare the salary to jet, and I think this is an important thing for all of us to sort of just register.
Mm.
The jet program is a government tax funded exchange program. It's an exchange program.
Right.
Um, it sort of has morphed over the last 10 years to sort of being this like transition period that program that a lot of people, myself included, have used to get into Japan and then into another career.
Right.
But fundamentally, it's a tax paid exchange program. So the types of salaries that you see jet ALTs get, I'm going to be honest and say not many places will match that. Some do, and some direct hires may get that, but it's again, it's the exception. It's not the rule. Um, so yeah, like I think we just need
It's
to
also
say
kind
that.
of a legacy thing. You know, the JET program's over 30 years old now.
Yeah,
And back at the beginning, when they set the salary, it's been basically the same salary that whole
yeah,
time. And the exchange rate to the dollar was much higher.
yep,
And so at that time, it was a stipend
mm,
in relative dollars, right? Which was, the overseas person looking towards it, you know, they knew it was enough to live on, but it was not a fortune,
mm,
right? And when I came in 1995, the exchange rate was around 70. So, the jet salary was, more than my parents were making,
mm.
you know, and I
Yeah,
was really lucky at that time. But again, the exchange rates come back. So it's been relatively stable. But I think people from overseas tend to think in the exchange rate
this is a good
value,
point. Yeah,
right?
this is a really
And they
good
don't
point.
think in the local value,
Yeah,
right?
this is a really good
And
point for
if they do
overseas.
think in the local value, they miss another point,
Mm,
that the JET program exists as a way of reducing the discrepancies between major urban areas and more rural areas.
mm. That's a really good point. Can you expand on that, Brian?
Well,
Because I
there's
think
a
I know what you're
gap.
getting at. Yeah.
I mean, there's a gap.
Yep.
If you're a high school student
Mm,
and you live in the Kanto area,
mm,
you have a much higher access to education.
mm,
And if you're living in Kumamoto or
mm,
Okayama
mm,
or Fukushima
mm.
or part of Aomori or something, your access to education is at a
Yeah.
basic level. It's at the basic level that the country provides, which is very good, but you don't have the extra level of all the jukus, all the universities, all the extra stuff that's in the Kanto area.
Mm,
And similarly for the Kansai area.
yeah.
So one of the things they are doing is attaching a payment to the jet's salary. So the jet salary package comes, and there's the part that the jet gets, and there's another part that the local government gets to keep and use for their programs, right? Now, ostensibly, that's to raise the level of education, but we know it's not. We know they use it for building roads or paying the police or whatever. It doesn't matter. Uh, So,
Mm,
in the case of somewhere like Interac, they don't
mm.
get that.
No,
Like,
this is
if they
a
have
good
an
point.
ALT from Interac, that
Mm,
additional payment isn't on there, right? It's just from the local tax base.
mm.
And, that's a fundamental difference.
I mean,
It just comes to the budget of the local area.
yep, and that's sort of a misconception that I want to come to. But let's just quickly go through the
Hmm.
remaining cons. The next thing I want to say, and again, these are all fairly broad statements, guys. I'm sure there are people who could prove me wrong. I'm sure there are, examples within these broad statements that you'd be like, well, actually, blankety blank. So I'm not going to argue. I'm just saying this is kind of the general look at it, right? Teaching in general, it's not an upward it's not an upward mobility career. Um, Teaching is pretty much flat. I mean, even if you are a licensed teacher, you could be a teacher at a high school, a school, a university. It's sort of really those three options.
Hmm.
It doesn't you don't become like chief executive teacher or like superintendent. Well, actually, that's a little bit different. But yeah, you don't become head manager teacher, right? It's just sort of teaching is teaching.
Hmm.
So I think if you are that sort of go-getter, someone who wants that corporate lifestyle, who wants to sort of move up to make the big bucks, I think I don't think the ALT position would be the position you'd want for a long time.
No.
That's not to say I don't think you shouldn't try it, because I think it's probably the safest, most rewarding way of coming into Japan.
Right.
But I think maybe after that first or second year, you would probably start feeling resentment. And that may be externalized, towards the role or the school or the company, which again, it's sort of that
Resentment, I would
expectation.
say, for frustration.
Frustration, yeah.
Yeah.
Resentment comes a bit later. Yeah, frustration, and it's because what you want and what you can achieve, there's a gap, and there's
Mm.
that it is a frustrating experience. All of Brian, I'm not sure about you, I've been there.
Yep.
It's taken me 8 years to get here, and I
Right.
still don't feel I'm where I want to be.
Right.
So it is what it is.
Hmm.
um the last con I just want to say, because I want to move on to our job board as well. um for the most part, you're not, and again, this is like one of those broad sweeping statements, so please feel me out here. I'm not generalizing
Hmm.
too much, but you're not a teacher. And what I mean by that is you're not a licensed teacher. There will be a certain degree of social expectation that the community and the school will put on you, but you're not going to be staying there till 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. You're not going to be going to the shopping mall and meeting the police if one of the kids has done shoplifting. You're not probably ever going to have to experience any of those
Yeah.
things. And a lot of these teachers, they do. Like, if you and you may see it actually if you're in the staff room every morning, there's going to be at least one teacher on the phone getting a verbal beatdown from a parent. Why is this? And I've listened, and it's shocking. It's really shocking.
Sure.
you know, the teachers get a lot of flack from the
Yeah.
the community. Mm.
Yeah, they
So,
do.
and you're not going to experience that. But on the other side, you're not a licensed teacher. So, if you are interested in being a licensed teacher, there are ways you can do that, even in Japan.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, like, against that expectation, guys, leave it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Those people that are the Japanese teachers
Mm,
are that as their career, and that's
it's their
what they're going
career.
to always do.
Mm,
The ALT position was never intended or designed to be that end stage career. Um, you know, and I think people don't have that in mind,
mm,
right? Or they lose that. They have it in
mm,
mind at the beginning, and then along the
mm.
way they lose it,
Yeah.
right? And that's where they have a kind of detach in a way.
Yeah, and I've gone through it. I can say personally,
Hmm.
I got upset. I have been through that, but and it's sort of like what I was saying last week, and it's not an easy thing to accept.
Mm.
But there comes a point where we as professionals have to realize getting angry at the game isn't going to fix the problem. This is just the
Right,
game, and if I
right,
want to get better, that's on me. I have to get better.
right. Well, you know, people exit the game
Hmm.
as
And
well.
that's fine. That's good. If don't fight the game.
Yeah,
It's a
I mean,
waste
I
of.
know a lot of people that have moved on, and that's
Hmm.
great. And
Yeah.
I think like it's a good starter and a
Hmm.
good place to start.
Absolutely.
Do you want to do it for 5, 10 years more than that? Probably not,
Probably not.
unless you really love it,
Yeah.
right? And there's something that people don't realize about the teaching profession overall.
Hmm. Mm-mm-mm.
And I've done some study on this um, in dealing with labor psychology.
Mm.
And labor psychologists, when they evaluate teachers, they look at the grade point average of people who are likely to become teachers and the retention of those people based on their grade point average. And they found that, like, a grade point average of, and this is 90s grade point averages, not today. There's great inflation today. But people who in the 90s had a grade point average of 2.7 to 3.2,
Mm-hmm.
right? Today it might be 2.9 to 3.5 or something, right? People who had, pretty much B, low B, mid B grade averages, not people that had straight A's, we're the ones that were most likely to have a long career as teachers, right? And that's not anything about the person's intelligence or
No.
something. It's about their ability to do learning, rote learning.
Mm.
And, for elementaries and middle schools, that level, a person who is a 2.7 to a 3.2 has enough knowledge to be a
Mm.
teacher there. And they don't have enough knowledge to go into that next level, the 3.5 to 4.0. Those people are going to be going into business, hard science, engineering, different things. Uh, that's why they stay in teaching, right?
Mm.
And so, people used to look for that certain band of grade point averages, right? A grade point average is a good one that we can use because it's not, based on, any other factor. It's only based on the effort a person puts in school.
Mm.
I mean, during university.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it may be the same, in other countries. I'd have to look for the research on that. And I'm not saying that ALTs that want to enter education have low grade point averages. They don't, because I've seen a lot of their transcripts, and they're very studious and smart. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that it's counter indicative to have a high grade point average and a long retention as a teacher.
Yeah. One
And you
thing.
should accept that about yourself. Accept that you put in the work and that you have the ability to reach a higher level. If
Mm.
if you go into the ALT, going to be an ALT,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's yeah, exactly. It is possible to move up, but it just comes back to you. Um, let's move on.
yeah,
I think we're running out of time. So how about we might extend this one, guys, to this topic to next week as well to sort of
yeah,
wrap it up. But for now, let's get to the jobs. It's probably why most of you are here.
Right.
Brian, what jobs do we have today?
Well, like I said at the beginning, we have 114 for Interac,
Oh
114 locations. Um, what just happened here?
no, did we lose it?
I don't know what we did.
Oh
Oh, I
no.
do. Okay, just a second. Um, okay, we'll be back.
Yeah, did you lose it?
I did lose it for a second,
All right.
and it bumped our cameras to the bottom of the stack, is what happened.
Oh
And
no.
here you come back. Okay,
Hello,
so
I'm back.
here's our window here. I can't get it to be bigger.
It's all right. We can read through it. The
Right.
the exciting
Let me just
positions.
make it the whole window
All right, let's do that.
and bring this up. So, guys, you can see that here's the window, and on our page, this is the spring 2021 Interac open positions map, and you
Mm-hmm.
can open up the map here, and it's opening up, and you can see that here are all the Interac globes. So all you have to do is say zoom in on your area. Okay, and let's look here is Toyama, right? There's plenty of places, right? But let's click on Toyama, and on the side here, this position information comes up, and right here is the link. So you can click off to that and apply. And you can also see, which areas are nearby just by clicking around and zoom out. That's a lot of blue globes around the country. So I'm not going to list these all off.
No,
Um,
we'll be
I'd
here
like
all
you
day.
guys to go look at the
Yeah.
blog page and look at the map and have a look around the available positions. And if you're near any of them, then give us a message or make an application is the easiest and fastest way,
Mm,
right? Is what we need to do. So
yeah.
yeah, apply for a job and apply for a job near you based on the map.
Yep. Fastest way of doing it.
Fastest way. Yeah. And that's it for Interac.
Yep.
What else have we got for LiNK Japan Careers? Reese, you
Uh,
want to take us through some open jobs?
yep. I will. So starting from the top, we basically we're looking for lots of English teachers and early childhood teachers. So first position we have is in Hiroshima. This is in Fukuyama City, and it's very close to the main station. I'll double check, but I don't think you need to drive. Basically, it would be general childcare duties. So you've probably got to be comfortable with very young learners. Again, a very rewarding job if you've done it, but it can sometimes be a little confronting if you haven't done it before. So if you have, you're probably going to love this job. Estimated annual salary income at 3 million yen, which is not bad in Hiroshima, actually.
Mm.
Hiroshima is much cheaper to live in than Tokyo. Um, you're looking at basically a work of about between 8 to 6, but that 8 is more like arriving. Please speak to the recruiter about the exact hours. With this position, there's quite a lot of long vacations. They have 3 very long vacations in summer, winter, and spring. So it's a pretty fun job if you want to move around Japan. You're going to have a bit of time to do that. And yeah, you can apply for that job at linkjapancareers.net. This is the English teacher for Hiroshima. We also have another position for a English teacher in Chiba, and this is in Tomizato. For those of you who maybe don't know the Chiba area so well, this is more towards the Narita end, and you
Yeah,
are probably going to need a car for this one, or be very, very close to that area.
yeah.
One of the
That's the
benefits,
town
hmm,
next to Narita.
great. So, if you when things settle down, you're going to have a ticket to sort of travel to Vietnam or Thailand or Taiwan. So yeah, that's one benefit. You're right next to the airport.
Yeah, very
Um,
easy to
right.
leave.
With this type of position too, this particular one, the they've designed the school in a very, very interesting way, and it's incorporating a lot of nature. So from an architectural point of view, it's really interesting, and it's actually, I think, got one of the best school designs by UNESCO.
Mm,
You can look that out. This school prides itself on the relationships between its teachers. So they were very clear that they want to break down that barrier between Japanese and English teachers and have just teachers. They have barbecues in the summer and end of year parties. Obviously, that didn't happen last year,
right.
but moving into the future, hopefully that will happen again. Um, you're looking at annual salary of between 2,200,000 to 3,420,000. It's negotiable based on experience, and a lunch allowance is included. If that sounds like something you might be interested in, come to linkjapancareers.net and apply for English teacher Chiba. Really have to do something with these names, guys. If you have any idea of names, send me a message and maybe I'll try to incorporate them because it's all English teacher. Then just a few more going down. We've got a couple of part-time positions, same as last week. One in Ibaraki has a bunch of unique benefits. An early childhood teacher in Shibuya. Pretty good if you have the spousal visa or you're just flexible with your hours in general. Um, and we have one English conversation instructor in Utsunomiya. Um, I actually just got some new information on this, so I'll just read this out very, very quickly. Let me find it. Um, Rent in Utsunomiya is fairly cheap. You're looking at about 40,000 yen for a 1K or 43,000 yen for a 1DK. This is in comparison with Tokyo, where it's probably going to be about 80,000 yen
Yeah.
to 98,000 yen. According to our comparison, I actually think it's more expensive, but we'll see. So you're going to pay about half on rent. In Utsunomiya, there's a total of 8 stations, and it's very easy to get to Tokyo. It takes about 50 minutes by Shinkansen. Obviously, that's not something you can do every weekend, but it's close enough that you can time and plan your trips to Tokyo. It's got a great
I
shopping
don't think it's
environment.
that bad by regular train. There are
Yeah.
people that work in Tokyo that commute to Utsunomiya. Yeah, it's an hour and
Oh,
something.
an hour and 40 minutes I'm seeing
Yeah.
to Shinjuku.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's not bad at all, really.
I mean, there's people that live in Yokosuka and
Yeah,
commute
that's a
to
trek.
Tokyo.
That's a trek.
Yeah.
I've done that
So,
before.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah. Utsunomiya, lots of sightseeing spots. You've got the museum, the Peace Park, the church, all of this
Famous for
stuff.
gyoza.
Famous for gyoza. Yeah.
Yeah, if you like gyoza, it's the place to be.
And that's the great thing about Japan, right? Like everything is famous for one thing, and they are
Yeah,
so proud of that one thing.
right.
So I imagine the gyoza is going to really be really, really great. Um, I'll add all this to the listing. It's not on there now, guys, but yeah, please check that out. That position is English Conversation Instructor, Utsunomiya. Look, that's basically all I've got, Brian.
Okay.
The rest of it's there for everyone to read. Anything you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I mean, next week we'll go to kind of the part two,
I think
talking
so.
about the nature of the ALT job.
And if you
And,
guys have questions about the
if you
ALT
have
job,
questions about it,
yeah,
drop
please,
questions in
and
here
we'll try to
and we'll
answer
be
them.
happy to handle
Yeah,
them. We know a lot about it. We can handle the tough topics as
yeah.
well. Um, anyways, guys, we're getting on here, so make sure you stop by our social media,
Okay.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram,
LinkedIn.
Pinterest, YouTube, and LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and strop,
Stop.
drop by our site at linkjapancareers.net and sign up for a job. Right.
Sounds good.
We'll talk to you next week, guys. Thanks for stopping in.